Hey guys, welcome back to episode 15.5 of the Short Corner Podcast. If you guys are tuning in for Lazio recap, big 2-0 win away. This is not the episode for you. We're doing a little preview of the Liverpool get picture that's coming up in the Champions League. So it's a mini episode. Last time we had a guest, my friend Ali, for the Man United tie against in the Man United tie in the Europa League. So we had a little guest. It's the second time that we're doing a little preview episode, and this time we got a Liverpool fan on here with us. It's my good friend Spence. He's a diehard Liverpool fan. You want to say hi, Spence?
Hey, Naim. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to chat about the upcoming fixture. It'll be nice to have Champions League football back.
Oh yeah. 7 years back for Milan. Anyways. Yeah, so we're kicking off in Anfield against Liverpool. It's a big fixture. I'm sure it's a great crowd over at Anfield, right? So. And a lot of the players that we haven't played Champions League, like Calabria, Tomori. Actually, Tomori has. I meant Tonali. So it's a young squad, and Leao too. So we're up against one of the toughest teams in Europe, I would say, Liverpool, and they have some of the best players in the world. And Spence, what do you make of the tie? Year opener too. It's coming up.
I'm excited, man. I think last season, there was sort of the prospect looming that we wouldn't make it, but. That beautiful bearded man in goal, Alisson Becker, with that glorious header against West Brom. In just the end of I think especially after last season in sort of February, March time and losses to Burnley, I think the expectation was that we wouldn't qualify. So to have it feel sort of like a bit of an added treat, and to have sort of a historical European tie against AC Milan, there's no better way to kick it off, and with fans in the ground again as well. I've got a few mates of mine in the city who are match goers, and I know they're pretty excited. I think to say I feel pretty confident in our squad at the moment is a bit of an understatement, and I'll definitely be a bit tongue in cheek this episode because I do feel confident. But at the same time, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about European football is that you never know what could happen. And I think there is sort of that extent, almost like in a derby, where you throw the form book out of the window a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think the nous and the experience we've had in the tournament over the past few seasons is really going to bode well for us. And I think having major players like Van Dyke back, as we've seen sort of in the first few matches of the season, has been massive. And I think the thing I love about this fixture, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is that both of these teams have European football woven into their culture.
Absolutely.
6 Champions League and European Cups. There is something special that I think you've got mega powers in the football world right now, like PSG and City, and they do so well domestically, but have yet to hoist old figures. So I think to have that those sort of 2 European pedigree teams to kick off the Champions League season will be something special, and I'm sure Anfield will be getting up ready for it. So I can't wait. It'll be great. I'll have to sneak it on work on my laptop.
I'm doing the same. Actually, I took a day off work actually for this game because 7 years.
Better man than I.
Hopefully, Alex is not scoring headers on us though on Wednesday, man. It's a great header against West Brom.
Hope it doesn't have to come to that. We'll leave it to the other 10 on the pitch.
Also, guys, Matt, Joe, and Rick could not join us because it's super late in Europe in the cities that they're in. Samir is going to be joining us in a few seconds, and I'm gonna ask Spence a question. We ask this question to every single guy that comes on, like, why do you support Liverpool? What got you into, why are you a Liverpool fan? My co-host Joe is asking, how do you sleep with yourself at night supporting Liverpool?
So growing up, our neighbors across the street and some of my family best friends were Irish, and he was a Red, so that sort of rubbed off on me a little bit. And then I think you look at players like Stevie, especially, that you grew up watching, and I think too, within the club, there's something special. I know there's an outlook from the rest of the country of, those Scousers again, or, it's an unbearable team to watch. And I think there is an aspect of that is sort of fun to play on. But at the same time, I think there's something special. And I feel fortunate in supporting the club that it's not just been about the football, but it's on the pitch.
For sure.
I've got a younger brother who's just turned 17 and he's a Red as well. And he has been for a few years now. And the thing I always try and tell him is that it's not just about watching the football, but it's about understanding the city and the way of life. And it's a very socialist working class city, and people look out for each other. And that sort of translates to the football and the culture on the football and going away in Europe and just sort of the camaraderie and the togetherness. And I think a lot of that plays into the history of stuff like Hillsborough and the history of the city in the 70s and 80s under Thatcher. And so I think it's a resilient city and it's a resilient club. And I think, they sort of go hand in hand. It really is a bit of a love story, I guess, if you want to put it romantically. And and that's sort of it's a fun thing to feel a part of. And I've been lucky enough to be on podcasts like the Anfield Wrap, who do unbelievable work within the city and talk about connecting people from abroad to Anfield and to the area. So that's I think part of my love for the club, obviously some tough years in the early 2000s, or I guess in the late 2010s or early 2010s, and the Fabio Barinis and the Ricky Lamberts. It's been fun over the past few seasons, and especially to get that European football back and to be in the Champions League and be in the late stages and to win the tournament. It's a fun time to support the club for sure. But yeah, and I think, like I said, I think it's a more of a holistic thing, and I'll never forget. Sorry, I know I'm rambling a bit here, but I'll never forget when I went to London a few years ago. I was lucky enough to get an away ticket to watch the Reds play Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. And the day before, I was in London. I was on a bit of a pub crawl with a few guys I had just met, all sort of from London, from the city, and they said, "Oh, you're in the away end, watch your wallet, and Scousers, they'll nick you and stuff like that." And I remember getting into the ground, and I've never been met with so much hospitality in my life. Like, I walked in, and the accent wasn't the Scousest thing in the world. So, it's like, come with me, lad. Like, we'll sit with us, like, have a pint, like, walk with us. And it's people I still connect with today. So I think, it really is a family, and I think there's a bit of that resilience and a bit of that sort of different outlook from the rest of the football world, and certainly in England. So that's a bit about how I got into the club and some of the reasons why I love supporting it. But I think it's the greatest football club in the world. I'm sure you disagree.
Oh, that's a great background there. The two clubs that we support, 13 Champions Leagues together combined. So it's a bit of a titan clash. Actually, so it might I think it's been how many years has it been since we last played? 14 years. 14 years since Milan and Liverpool played against each other. So I don't it might be a long time since we're going to have a Liverpool fan on this podcast, or we do an episode with a Liverpool fan. So people that don't know about Hillsborough, could you give us a bit of a background on as to what happened there and why is it significant to the club?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, and I don't think it can be sort of summarized in a in great detail on a podcast. And it's the FA Cup final in 1989, that Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough, there was basically a crush of supporters in the Leppings Lane end. This was Liverpool Nottingham Forest.
Okay.
And there was lots of police negligence, and there's still running inquests today. And I think they just wrapped up recently, and 97 football fans lost their lives during the incident.
Horrible.
And at the time, it was a time of economic downturn in the city, and it was the terrible tragedy that still affects families today. And so I think that, that's sort of the extent I could probably go into it. It's an incredibly emotional thing for those who were there and for those in the city. And I think it still sort of resonates today in a lot of the football, but also in the city. And there's lots of support for, the families and in campaigns, whatnot. So that's sort of a bit of a background on the incident. I guess a brief summary is, as much as you can get into in short.
Amazing. Great background for the Milan fans that don't know what happened to Hillsborough. That's a quick summary. You can probably find more about it on YouTube and the internet. But going on off that, both our teams are in great form. Milan are undefeated. They've collected 3 points, or 3 out of 3, I guess, 3 wins against the last 3 teams they played in the Serie A. Liverpool, they're also undefeated, other than that draw against Chelsea. A bit unlucky there, but great form. It's so it should be a blockbuster fixture because both these teams are playing some champagne football at the moment, and obviously they're 2 heavyweights from their country. They have the most Champions Leagues from each of their respective countries. Let that be known. The United and the Juventus and the Inter fans that Liverpool and Milan were the shit in the countries. But so you talking about your form, like what do you before going into the game? What do you think your chances are of Liverpool winning, drawing, losing, just based off the form?
I think based on form and based on Champions League pedigree as well. I think hey, you have to take it into account. I feel confident that we'll pick up the 3 points from the fixture, and I do think there is that level of Champions League nous and Champions League pedigree to the squad, and I don't think that can be ignored. I think we started the season flying, and you can make arguments that Chelsea down to 10 men we could have done more, and maybe we could have, but it feels like defensively we're sound. I don't know how opposing attackers must feel looking at our back line and our keeper, and you've got Matip and Van Dyke who are monsters at the back, and you've got Fabinho ahead of them and Allison behind them, and they're just I think in any match you sort of have your insights as to where our defensive breakdowns are, and we certainly had a few scares this past week as well. But Allison made some unbelievable saves, and I just think our front three's firing. I love Diogo Jota. I think both him and Bobby can do the job. Everyone's firing. Mane I think struggled this weekend
Quite a bit, yeah.
And he was a bit wasteful, but thankfully he got his goal in the end. But I think the midfield's been linking up incredibly well. I think Trent has been unbelievable in some of the chances he's created. I know there's lots of shouts for him to play in the midfield, but I think the way he sees the pitch from the right wing and the way he's able to the support he gets and the way he plays off of Salah and the way Henderson comes over to support when he plays on that side as well. I think if it's not broke, why try and fix it?
It's the best crosser in the world, Trent.
Yeah, and, I think there's always going to be aspects, especially at a relatively young age for a footballer, where you can refine your game. But he just gets better and better with each year. I think. I know last season he was a bit off the pace defensively.
Yeah.
Wasn't producing as much, but I also think it's a strange year, and I think fans forget very quickly when he's producing like he is thus far. So I think that'll be huge. I think on form, because it's so early in the season as well, our squad's relatively healthy. Bobby picked up a bit of an injury, and I know obviously that there was that horrible incident at the weekend with Harvey Elliott, and wishing him a speedy recovery. But I think having Virgil back has just made all the difference. You watch him play, and it's like he doesn't even break a sweat. I think there was a little bit more. He was a little bit more turned on, a little bit more cognizant against Chelsea. I think because Lukaku has that bigger presence, and he can do bits in the box as well. Mm-hmm. But he just strides around. He's so calm. He guides the team. He distributes the ball well. He communicates. I think he was such a missed presence last season.
Absolutely.
And I know fans and supporters gripe about our lack of transfer business, and I think there's arguments to be made there. But the club locked up quite a few players this season in long-term contracts, and I think when you look at our injury record last season, and it might be an anomaly because of the amount of matches that were being played, but he's just been superb to have back, and I think it's a different side with him.
Sounds good.
I feel very good about our
That's it's safe to say you think 3 points are in the bag pretty much, because Liverpool, I would say, are their favorites, and that's just how it is. Samir, if you're here, do you want to talk about a bit about Milan's form and who should start in our midfield, or who should just start if you're here?
Hello, Spence. I'm sorry, I joined in late,
Yeah, I joined in a bit
late. It's like 4 here. I'm sorry if I'm video. Yeah, it's
quite late.
It's quite late. So yeah, man. Honestly, I'm really scared to face Liverpool.
Yeah.
Like the first 3 matches, they look really good, except the Chelsea match.
Chelsea, yeah. True.
I feel like they could have done better, but in Chelsea, they're an amazing team. They've been doing really amazing since last year, right? So I've got like half of the Liverpool's last match against Leeds. They did really good, Yeah, like Mane, he had a slow game, but in the end, he scored a goal. I'm confident, Milan looked good in all the games we played, except the Sampdoria, which is a bit, bit lacking. But since that match, everyone has been firing, everyone almost had like perfect games. I have no complaints. But then I feel like this Liverpool team, they played in UCL, they won it like 2 years back, so they know what it takes, to win matches, to grind for the matches, and so far, unlucky for us, but Liverpool, everyone looks fit. Like, I think all of them are out of injury, so that's like, I'm happy for them, but that's kind of scary for us, like Van Dyke,
Scary.
He's slowly getting better. Trent, he looks like the player he was 2 years back, like everyone looks really good, I feel like this is gonna be the hardest match for us, honestly. Like I saw the Atletico last match they played. They are, they score a goal and they just go back, just wait for the ball. And Milan is really good against a team that they'll wait for us to come, But Liverpool, they just go all in all the time. So that's kind of hard.
Liverpool attack a lot, but my question was like the Tonali is playing so well. Like, what do you make of our team selections going in? Should Tonali, on the form that he's in, should he start over Benassi or Kessie? What do you think of our midfield going in?
Oh, with the form he's on, easily. Yes.
Tonali should be starting at midfield.
Yeah, definitely. Tonali has been amazing the last 3 matches. He's been so good, man. and we have seen like as soon as Ibra came on, his long ball started doubling. Like the way he's like passing the ball to Ibra, it's needed. I like Venezuela, but then he kind of slowed down, since his injury last season. Like till he starts getting his rhythm back, I feel like Tonali with Kessie is just perfect. My only question is who can we start? Like Ibra is Ibra, and Giroud had a really good season so far. He scored like 4 goals. If you at the preseason.
He's in good form, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So on that note, we're gonna do like a combined Liverpool Milan Xi, and then we're gonna talk about the key battles that based on the Xi and the players that we talked about, like key battles afterwards. But we're gonna let Spence have the floor on this combined team, and then Samir and I obviously can critique that. So goalkeeper, Mike Manan or Alisson?
Look, I don't think there's any two ways, but I think Alisson Becker is the greatest goalkeeper in the world. I know there could be arguments for Jan Oblak, but how many goals does your goalkeeper have? No, I think that's a bit of a no-brainer. I think he's the
I would say Alisson too. Virgil Van Dyke or Simon Kjaer?
Again, he's the best center half in the world. He's the best center half in the world. I've thought about this today, and it might be a bit of a Liverpool side at 11, but I'll give some reasons to get into the more debatable topic. But I think, like I said, Virgil's been back on form, and he clearly, it's almost, knock on wood, like that injury never happened, but he just looks unbelievable. I think you watch him play, and it's almost like Maldini, where he's not out of position. Like I know it's a big comparison to make, but it's like the way he plays, he's never cut out. There's never a big challenge. It's always very calm and level-headed. He makes the smart decision. He's physically intimidating. Like he imposes himself upon opposing players, and I just think he is just something else. So yeah, I'd have to take Virgil for that selection there.
Fikayo Tomori or Joel Matip? I'm assuming that's who's starting for you guys.
It's been interesting. I think you look at Joel Matip's an interesting one with Liverpool supporters, especially because I think there are times where he's so on, like that run we made to the Champions League in 2019. Joe Gomez starts the first half of that season and is superb, and then in December breaks his leg against Burnley, and Joel Matip comes on and he plays really, I think he had an own goal against Bayern, but he plays so well towards the end of that season. And then coming into last year, he was like, you had to wrap him in tissue paper and double wrap because he was injured so often. He played, and injury concerns ran sort of throughout the team. And I think it was a larger trend in world football, but he never played. You play a match or two and he'd be out with an injury. But I think on form, he's been fantastic. I know, Fikayo Tomori's, class as well, but he hasn't put a foot wrong. And even if you watch the Leeds match, in the build to the first goal, he's spectacular. He sets it up. He makes the first outlet pass. And I think, he's such an imposing force in the air, which will be important against, players like Giroud and like Ibra who sort of have that height and physicality. So
for sure.
I'll have to go with Joel Matip again.
No worries. So we'll do a little critique on your team afterwards. So pick all the Liverpool players you want.
Yeah.
All right, Davide Calabria or Trent Alexander-Arnold. We're talking about right backs here. So we got to look at the defensive aspect. So go Calabria.
So I was thinking about this today, and I think it's always hard when you pick 11s because it's like, okay, am I picking who I think is the best 11? Or am I putting my players or my manager's hat on? Am I making it fit? And I think, there'll be examples later where that comes into play. Look, I think we've just spoken about Trent in a bit of length there. We've been solid at the back this far this year. We've only allowed 1 goal in 4 matches. And Trent's been superb. He's got the most passes in the Premier League. He's got, I think 3 or 4 or 5 assists so far this season. Like, he's been spectacular. And like you said, he looks like he's on the form he was a few seasons ago. And I think based on that, I have to pick him as well.
Fair. Now left backs. See, Andy Robertson, I will personally say I rate as the best left back in the world. He's been at the top for years. So Theo Hernandez, he's been in crazy form, but Andy Robertson's been doing it obviously longer. He has a lot more trophies under his belt. So Andy Robertson or Theo Hernandez, go.
I've got a few mates, yourself included, who support Milan, and they love Theo Hernandez. They got my ear chewed off about him constantly. So I had to look up some numbers for this one. I think, you look at the service provided by Andy Robertson. I think, he's prone to his off match. I think he started the Leeds match a bit rough, and then he was cut out of position a few times. He wasn't really picking up their wingers, and Klopp had a word with him, and he was fantastic for the rest of the match. He was he's just got sort of that nastiness to him. Like there was a few moments where he's not the biggest player in the world, but he imposes himself physically. Like he boxes out well, he uses his body, he gets the ball up the line. I think he works really well with our midfield at the moment, especially Thiago sort of playing on that left side with him. And like you said, I think he's the best left back in the world. So I have to go with
Randy. Okay, now here's a few key battles in the midfield. I'm assuming Hendo is going to be playing on Wednesday. He's a captain, leader, legend for you guys. So Jordan Henderson or Frank Kessie?
I think this is another interesting when we look at sort of form versus, I guess, longer term. This one I might get slated for amongst my own supporter group, and part of it's because Hendo's come off of a few injuries last season, hasn't really played a ton. He's come off the bench a few times and been fantastic. I thought he played very well against Leeds. I think I'll go with Kessie on this one. I think Hendo's been superb. I think a few seasons ago I've made arguments for him to be player of the year over De Bruyne because he was unbelievable.
Unbelievable player.
Like when the year we won the league, having him on the pitch was night and day. And I think a lot of people when they talk about Hendo who haven't watched him a ton sort of get that he's boring, he's side to side, and I think
he's not.
And I think when you look at maybe 2016-17, a bit of 17-18. He was that player. He was the number 6. He was much more defensive, and that was sort of the role he was asked to do. And I think it's not an easy thing to do, especially considering under Rodgers he was a bit more of an attack-minded player, a bit more of a forward position midfielder, whereas under Klopp he's sort of asked to drop back. And I think since Fabinho's come in, he's done an excellent job of being that transition man, and he runs the midfield. I'm going to go with Kessie because having watched him play, I think he does run Milan's midfield.
He does, yeah.
And I think
that's the goal against United too.
I think he's one of their strong players for sure. So I'll take Kessie because I admire him as a player, but I'd also say I think Hendo needs more time to sort of feel his way into the season at the moment.
Next one's actually a no-brainer, and I feel kind of silly for asking this. Fabinho or Sandro Tonali?
Next. Sorry, he's a wall at the back. It's been great to have him back at the number 6. The one thing I will say quickly is I think, last season he played center half, and credit to him because he was unbelievable. But I think having him be able to have it in his head that he can make that big challenge, and he'll have the 2 guys behind him and the beautiful, beautiful man in goal behind them, and sort of those layers of protection makes him the player he is in terms of the fact that he can make a big challenge, he can put a foot in and not worry about being the last line of defense. So I think that's been very helpful for him so far.
He's a quality player. He's world class in my opinion. All right. Next up is a battle of the 2 Spaniards, Thiago Alcantara versus Brahim Diaz. You already know Brahim from his time at Man City. What do you think?
Oh, I think Thiago's just different gravy. I think, last season he got slated a bit because he didn't really produce much, and he had a few injuries and he had COVID. I think looking at Hendo again, looking at Fabinho again, I think that's why injuries, and they talk about them so often in terms of how they really messed with our side last year. Not just missing, guys like Virgil and Joe Gomez at the back, but what it took away from the rest of the side. And I think having Fab at the 6 and allowing Thiago to play a bit more of an 8-10 sort of role where he can get further up the pitch, it just frees him up, and the passes he plays are just unbelievable. I know he's got a bunch of clips in training, and he is just, his quality on the ball is spectacular. But you watch him play, and everything comes back to him. He's playing the ball off, he's playing balls in, he's coming behind, picking it up again, he's playing passes through, he's pinging balls out to the wing. Like, you just watch him, he's got this Xabi Alonso-esque ability to pick out a pass and see the field differently. And his technical ability is just superb. So again, I'll have to go with the Liverpool option here and take Thiago, but I'm excited to see what the season produces for him, because I think he'll sort of be in a bit of a new role that allows him to play a bit more of his style of football this season.
Next up are the wingers, and we can probably
I think we can get the wingers out of the way. No, I'm dragging on here with my selection. So I think Mane and Salah, the speed there is, and the goal scoring ability. Mo Salah with his 100th goal at the weekend. They're just unbelievable. It's so fun to watch them play football, and I know sometimes they struggle with working off one another, and you get that when you have players that want to score, and I think you want that from your strikers sometimes, your wingers sometimes, is that selfishness, but I just think they're some of the best in the world.
Okay, last position here. Zlatan Ibrahimovic or Bobby Firmino?
So this one I thought about today, actually, quite, because you preface this that this is going to be a topic. And I think this is where I put my hat on of, do I want who I think is probably the quote unquote better player? Do I want who's going to do the role for the side? And I actually think it's not either of those. For me, it's Diogo Jota. I think he's been unbelievable since he's come in. And I think the reason I say him is because I think, Firmino in the past, he had 17-18 had a great season, scored loads of goals, and hasn't really produced the same way. But he's sort of that bit of our team where he drops back. He does play that gegenpressing style of football where if he loses the ball, he's winning it right back. He does loads of work off the ball, and I think Jota does some of that as well. And I think that's a result of playing under Klopp and playing under the style we play. But at the same time, he scores. He's a natural striker, and he is scoring quite a bit. And his production last year was unbelievable. And I think the reason I don't say Zlatan, not gay, because I think he's an absolute blurt who refers to himself in the third person. I'm not his biggest fan. But I think he's more of that sort of target man. I think if you're playing him in this sort of side, he doesn't have the legs to do that kind of work off the ball. And he's a prolific goal scorer, and he's unbelievably talented for his age, especially, and what he's able to do and the minutes he's able to put into his legs at his age.
Yeah.
And the production he's able to have, the top flight, like it is unbelievable. But I think if you're playing within that system of I'm actually picking an 11 that I want on the pitch, I think I'd have Diogo Jota in there right now, especially on form. I think he's been fantastic so far this season, and a young player too. So I'm relatively young, so I'm excited to see what happens with him in the next few years. I think he was a fantastic signing.
He's a great dribbler, that's for sure, and we already know that. All right, Samir, I got a question for you. So Salamaker is up against, I believe it's Andy Robertson, Rafael Leao up against Trent Alexander-Arnold, and obviously Ibrahimovic against the two center backs that they have. What do you make of our chances in those areas? What do you think? What's going to happen?
Samu Costello, he's dying.
Samu Costello is not going to see the field, bro.
Yeah, I'm really scared for our right side.
Our right side,
if he starts, I don't think he's gonna start.
He's not.
And so Salamakers, he improved a lot this season. We've seen with Belgium too. He's been really good. Yeah, but then against Trent, I don't think so. It's
he's up against the best left back he's ever faced in his career. Andy Robertson. It's his toughest challenge in his career, and Salamakers was 21, 20, something like that. So we'll see. That's one. And Rafael Leao against Trent. What do you think about that?
Same again. Trent is really experienced. He had big games. He faced Barca. They faced the best teams they could possibly face, and they came on top. So it's Leo, I like him, but I same thing. I think he doesn't stand a chance. Sadly, only way to somehow do something is Rebic, because he's so unpredictable. It's gonna be hard for Trent to stop a guy who himself doesn't know what he's gonna do next.
Rebic is a clown sometimes.
Rebic is the most unpredictable guy of the player I've ever seen. He's that's the only way I can see. And Zlatan, if he's full healthy. Van Dyke will finally have a match. I feel both of them are strong, both of them are tall, both of them are amazing on air. It's it's
titans.
Perfect battle, honestly.
I think that'll be. I talked a little bit about how Van Dyke seemed a little bit more cognizant of Lukaku when they played Chelsea. I think there's sort of that size factor and that factor where you're able to sort of impose your size and your ability on the game, and I think that'll be something that Virgil's cognizant of. That'll be a great matchup.
Great matchup for sure.
Will Giroud play as well? Do you think? Is that I don't know Milan's formation, if I'm in complete honesty. Will they play two strikers up top at all?
We don't play two strikers, but here's what I think. Giroud's going to come on as a sub later in a 4-4-2 if we need a goal. Would you agree, Samir, on that?
Yeah. Same.
Is that Giroud?
Let's say. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, Giroud's not going to be starting. It's going to be Ibra, and then Giroud's going to be subbed on maybe. Yeah.
The one thing I would say is if you had those two guys on the pitch together, I think I love Joel Matip. I think he's a fantastic player. I think there is the opportunity to impose your will a bit on him and sort of. He's a great center half. I just think he's no one is, but he's not Virgil Van Dyke, and I think there is that opportunity to slip in behind or beat him one-on-one from time to time. So that could be one area I see if that were the case.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, and you touch on sort of young players making their Champions League debuts against big clubs. I remember in 2017, 2018, it was a very different squad that we had, now to then. And we just squeaked into the Champions League the year before, we beat Middlesbrough on the last day. And Trent was really coming, he was very, very mistake prone. We did a few rough outings thus far in the season. We'd already been beaten badly by City. And coming into the Champions League draw, there was talk of him having to face Leroy Sané. And he'd really struggled. And he was superb. And I think part of the exciting thing about having a growing in club like Milan is, and sort of like Liverpool's been under Klopp since he took over, is that when you make it to Europe, you don't really have these high expectations. Like listen to this conversation we're having now. You both kind of said, oh, I'm not really hopeful of taking away the 3 points. Not to say, you don't want it to happen, or that it will, but it's nice to not have that pressure of, okay, we're going to win. We have to win. And I think what comes with part of that is your players pick up this valuable experience, but they're playing some of the top players in the world, and they're cutting their teeth on European football. And that you see your squad grow and develop as a result, or you hope to at least. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they don't make it out of the group, maybe they into the Europa League after the round robin. But I mean, it's a group of death. But I think if anything, those young players get some valuable Champions League experience that they carry with them for the next few seasons.
For sure. And Samir, we have a lot of players that this is their first outing in the Champions League against fucking Liverpool. That's all the teams. Like, what a way to introduce yourself to Champions League. Salamakers, Leao, Calabria, Romagnoli, I think Tonali too. Those guys are going to be starting, and just tough. It's tough.
It's like our almost everyone's first time ever playing UCL except Theo.
Just Theo, yeah, and Tomori.
Theo, Tomori, Minion, and Ibra. These four starting. Giroud played, but then starting wise, just these three played it, and Theo was like a backup.
Yeah, he didn't play much. He was a reserve at Madrid. Yeah.
So it's for the first time. I feel it might also kind of help us. Our first time in 7 years. They will have that. The pressure, also the hype. You know what I mean? For the first time in 7 years, that's something. You know what I mean? But it's gonna be very hard.
Spence, talk to us about the atmosphere at Anfield and how it's going to affect these young guys, and what's that like?
I mean, the thing that made me very excited when fans are back in the ground, supporters are back in the ground, was that guys who hadn't really had that experience before, playing for the side, got to experience that. And I know Jota's had that experience for Wolves, and Thiago's played against us with Bayern, but I just think there's something different about having those supporters in the ground. That I think you look at games like Barcelona in the semi-final, that doesn't happen if you don't have those fans in the ground. And I think there genuinely is that intrinsic, instinctive belief that they can impact the match. And I think it's stuff like the coach bus greetings. And I know stuff gets hostile with bottles of Copperberg getting thrown at the city bus a few years ago, but it's nothing ever where people get injured. And I think there is that atmosphere and passion on a European night that it's just unrivaled. And I think you've seen. You get clips of Arsene Wenger and Jose Mourinho turning back and, when they're in the broadcast booth saying, look at that, where else do you get that? And I think there is something to that, where that I talked about earlier, that passion of football in the city, especially on European nights with the history of the tournament too. So I think it'll be a unique experience. I think it'll be interesting to see how those young players cope with it. But I think that's, on a personal level for them, it's part of the beautiful thing about being a footballer is you get to go experience these incredible atmospheres. And I think if they're, it could be intimidating, but I also think they could say, okay, I'm up for this. Let's see how this goes. And I think regardless, I don't think it'll be so much of a prohibitor for Milan as it will be massively huge for our side. Because I think we just feed off the Anfield crowd, especially on European nights. So I think it'll be more of a boost for us than it will be a prohibitor for Milan.
Absolutely. And one last thing before we went to questions for Spence is that we didn't talk about the midfield. There's been some key battles in there. Tonali's going to have to be watching Thiago. Kessie versus Fabinho. It's a big physical battle. Two strong men at the peak of their careers right now. So what do you guys make of that battle in the middle of the park? And what are your expectations between Kessie and Tonali and Fabinho and Henderson?
I think the interesting thing, I'm still kind of getting used to our midfield again, because I think I think he wanted too much money, and I hate to say he's one of my favorite players, but having Gini Wijnaldum leave this summer, I think really hurt. He played 38 matches last season. Some of his hold-up play was fantastic, and while he takes some criticism because he's not always on top form all the time, I think he was an incredible servant for the club. So I think there is an aspect of filling that hole. I think at the same time, having players in the back line healthy again means that, like I mentioned with Fabinho earlier, I think he's been unbelievable since coming back. And I think I think that the tough part won't necessarily be winning the midfield battle against Fabinho. I think you'd have to have a very off night for that to make a big difference. I think it's beating Fabinho, but then also having to get past the guys at the back. And like I said, sort of having those layers of support.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be interesting to see how Hendo plays, given that, again, he's sort of coming back into the fold after a bit of time off and after some injury last season as well. I think Thiago will be the one to watch in our midfield, the one to really have to lock down, which is so hard because he is, like I said, his ability to pick out a pass is just spectacular. And I think on the other end of the ball, you've got some physical players, and I think Fabinho's a good, Fabinho and Hendo, he gets back and sort of does his role there. But I think the key to our midfield will be Thiago going forward. I think that's the role he was brought in to do, and I think now that we've got Fabinho back at the number 6, we've got Hendo there as well, I think he'll be able to get a little bit more free and get forward a little bit more and play some more fluid football. So I think he'll be the biggest threat in the midfield that Milan will have to watch out for.
I want to talk about Sandro Tonali. He was up against Milinkovic Savic and Luis Alberto, who you already know. He was at Liverpool on their books a few years ago. And Samir, he locked down Sergei Milinkovic Savic, one of the best midfielders at Lazio. He locked him down really hard, and he was just on his ass, like breathing down his neck. So do you think he can recreate that against the likes of Thiago?
If Tonali is having a good game, I think so. He's so quick, right? He gets the ball and just
Fast,
moves, the way he's so fast. He just gets the ball and moves, And he looks, he doesn't look big, but then he is strong as hell. The way he got the ball from Milinkovic Savic, the way he picked up the balls from him, from Luis Alberto, it was so seamless, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think the best thing about Tonali is he gets the ball and just moves away, he doesn't, he doesn't hog the ball, doesn't chill the ball, he just gets the ball and passes or dribbles past them. I think that's one of his best, attribute. Compared to Kessie gets the ball, he waits for a bit, right?
Yeah, he does wait a bit.
But Tonali, he gets the ball and he just moves on, pass and if I feel like if Tonali does the same thing he did against, Lazio. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can do it against Thiago as well,
He's gonna have to watch Thiago because Thiago creates play, and we already know that at Liverpool.
Yeah.
But interesting battle though, like Kessie versus Fabinho. That's going to be a battle of two big men. Like I said, they're both huge monsters. So see some tackle slang in. Hopefully not a red card for either of our teams. And nothing too. Actually, on that note, on injuries, poor Harvey Elliott. We're both of us are wishing a speedy recovery to him. He's a quality player, quality person from what we've seen. So a speedy recovery to Harvey Elliott. This episode is dedicated to him, and prayers out to him. He's a young player, and we really like him a lot. And we're gonna go out. One last question for Spence before we head out. It's from our other co-host Joe. He's from Scotland. He's a big Celtic fan. He says, "I used to watch Virgil Van Dyke play for Celtic all the time. We knew back then he was a special talent. He used to get caught out occasionally back at Celtic out of position, but he's clearly refined his game a lot since then. Where would you rank him in Liverpool's all-time defenders?" And another question is, can Celtic have Van Dyke back?
Pardon me?
Can Celtic?
Yeah, for the right price in about 6 years. Yeah, I think with all players, you watch as they develop and as they grow through the clubs they play for. No, I think Van Dijk's not the same player he was at Celtic as he was at Southampton. I think at Southampton he had a mistake in him as well, and I don't think he's the same player he is for us now that he was when he joined, the January transfer window in 17-18. I think when you play under managers like Klopp and in the system we play in, and you have that opportunity to play in big matches, that you grow. And I've sung his praises enough on this episode, so I don't think I need to how special he is. I think in terms of the all-time question, certainly in my lifetime, I think you look at the two that stand out are Carragher and Hyypiä.
Hyypiä.
I think the thing with Carragher was he's an unbelievable defender, but back to that comment about Virgil being a bit more Maldini-like in terms of his approach, where he's never really at a position where he has to make a big tackle. And I think Carragher would say himself that he was prone to that, and he was a guy for a big tackle, and he was imposing and physical. But I think with Virgil, there's just that extra layer of calmness to his game that he doesn't quite get caught in a position, and he has in the past, obviously, and it's bound to happen, but he never leaves his feet. He never really breaks too much of a stride unless the opponent sort of warrants it. And the one clip that I always think of is when he played Mbappe in the Nations League. Then he started moving his feet a little bit, and there's that sort of bit more of an effort there. But
yeah,
I think he's just different grade. I think part of it is his mentality as well. The one player who I've never been able to watch, but you get sort of the Scouse dads and the Scouse grandpas saying that Alan Jockey Hansen, who was sort of in the Liverpool sides of the 70s, 80s, He's the only one that people ever sort of say could give Virgil a run for his money, but I wasn't around to watch him then. So yeah, I definitely say he's the best Liverpool center half that I've
Ever
watched.
seen. That makes sense. Actually, one question I had for you, Samir. Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane against our fullbacks. I think we have the best fullbacks in the Serie A, Theo Hernandez and Davide Calabria. What do you make of that battle in the park? Because Salah is in my opinion the best right winger in the world. Mane, like obviously, like he's not the same player he was, but like before COVID happened to him, but still, like our fullbacks are quite young. Calabria's never played in the Champions League against Sadio Mane of all the people. Like, what do you make of the Liverpool wingers getting past us? What's gonna happen there?
To be honest, I think I'm kind of hopeful. Calabria, he's a really good defender. And Mane, I think since last season he has been kind of off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's missing chances. Like I don't watch Mane play all the time, but then like from the things I see on Twitter, he's not the same player he was, like 2 years back.
Yep.
And Calabria has been improving every year. Like this year, since he got the captain's armband, he's been like a different gravy. Like he's like we call him, Kafubria. You know what I mean? Like he's been so good. Like I'm more scared about Theo facing Salah. Like Salah is like you said, easily like the top 3 or top 2, if you don't include Messi as a winger. Salah is easily the best one, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And Theo, yeah, Spence, go on.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
It's like Theo is amazing in attack. He's been slowly improving, in
his defense.
Yeah, but like if Salah versus Theo is like it's gonna be a really hard battle for him, honestly. Tough. Like Salah is so good, man. He can like he's so fast. He can cross. He can do everything. Honestly, he's just amazing, man. And Theo, he has been improving in his defensive aspect, but then it's still not as good as Calabria. You know what I mean?
Playing the devil's advocate here, like Theo Hernandez, as much as I love him to death, he has his defensive brain farts. He has lapses in this game where he forgets to track back, forgets to pick up the runner, and it's on Fikayo Tomori to pick up on the winger. So he can't be having a brain fart against Mohamed Salah of all the players. Salah sees a mistake, he'll capitalize it just like snap. He'll see a little gap, he'll get through, dribble through, and he loves to take shots. He loves to take shots from outside the box on his left foot. That's the sweet spot of it. So Theo Hernandez has to be on his game for once there.
And
like one thing I've been noticing. Sorry, go on.
I'll be quick. I think that the dangerous thing about our right side about Salah as well that Hernandez have to watch out for isn't just Salah, but it's our entire right side of the pitch. I think when you watch the little triangle, Harvey Elliott's been quite good at it since he's been getting more regular minutes. But I think when you look at the traditional sort of, it's usually Trent, Mo, and Hendo who all shift over, and their overlap play is fantastic. Salah, one-on-one, he's aggressive, he's fast, he's unbelievably strong, he can beat a man. But I think the real danger on our right side as well comes in how those three play together, because you can play Trent on the overlap. And he'll swing a ball in, or you can feed Hendo, and then the play's going through the middle. It's a bit more of a dangerous area. So I think that'll be part of the dangers is managing those three and we can do it on the left as well. But I think that right side and those three particularly do it really well in terms of how well they support one another and the danger they can create based on their own sort of personal attributes and skills and abilities.
That's a good point. Samir, what were you just gonna say there?
I'm saying the biggest problem with Theo this season, it's he's caught out of position a lot of times,
Yeah, he is.
Like if it had happened against Liverpool and Salah, Salah, he's gonna get the ball and that's the part I'm really scared about. Yeah, like Theo goes, he goes forward a lot, right? And in a match he loses position like 2-3 times, per match, and this can happen, like for tomorrow, like no way, like you lose the ball, you're done. Like in that way. Tomori has to, go to Salah, and then Thiago has a space, and then it's like.
I think Fikayo Tomori played against Salah once or twice, and he held his ground against Salah. That's what the Chelsea fans were saying. So like I don't think I watched that game, but he was doing quite well against Mohamed Salah because Tomori's quite quick. So this is a new Tomori that Salah's facing. He's a better Tomori. So it's gonna be an interesting battle between Salah and Tomori if Salah's drifting into his area, right? But you guys have anything more to add on the fullback versus wingers topic?
I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
Same,
guys,
man. Like,
I'm actually surprised we got through this episode without bringing up the Istanbul and the Athens games. So that's a big congratulations to all three of us
Yeah.
for keeping it civil.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I know you mentioned sort of we haven't played each other in 14 years.
14 years.
Istanbul and Athens are, major parts of our club's history. But I also think part of it too is that, you talk about it, you haven't been in the Champions League in 7 years. It almost feels like a bit of a dawn of a new era for Milan in terms of it's looking forward, not back. I think with clubs like this, you'll always have the history to draw on and to look at and to, it's a part of the culture of the club. But it does feel like in, being in the Champions League again, it's nice to look back at what's been, but it's also sort of this what's forward, because in the time that's been, there's been some poor seasons and some seasons I'm sure fans would wish to forget. So I think there is that aspect of let's look forward and let's look ahead to the future.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can relate to that with the likes of Jay Spearing, Joe Allen, Charlie Adam playing games for you, eh?
the Welsh Pirlo.
The Welsh Pirlo. But yeah, Liverpool fans can definitely relate to our banter era, as we coin it. But it's a little connection that both our clubs have. Lots of history there. Biggest clubs in our countries, and there's other games that's going on that Wednesday, and I can bet my house on it that everyone is going to be tuning into Liverpool Milan game because it is the biggest fixture on that day.
Easy, facts, big facts.
The most champions.
What are our score predictions for the match?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh. Yeah, right, I'm looking forward to this. I'll kick it off. I'm gonna say 3-1 to Liverpool. They win it at Anfield. What do you think, Samir?
I have like two predictions. One is if you don't lose, it's gonna be like 1-1 draw.
That's a good
prediction.
And
the other one is, and second one is Liverpool win 3-1.
3-1.
Yeah.
As much as I want to say 3-1, we've been so sound defensively, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way whatsoever, but we've been so sound defensively. I feel like I have to go with. I feel like 2 or 3-0 is sort of in the cards. I think if there's an early goal, I think the game, the game gets blown wide open and we take it 3-0. I just feel very confident in the way we've been playing recently.
Like, to be honest, both of our teams, I think we have like exact same record, right? Like only 1 goal conceded.
Yeah. Our defense has been quite great too. Both of our teams have only 1 goal conceded so far. Yeah.
And I think there's also sort of the circumstance of the match is, it's a Champions League match, so do you try and play for the draw your away? So I think it'll be interesting. I think it's easy to have a game, but everyone's got a game plan until you get punched in the face. So I think it'll be how both clubs react.
I don't think we're gonna score from open play. Milan are a bit of penalty connoisseurs, like Man United over there, but I think we might get a penalty and Cassie just scores it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we might not score an open play goal, but hey, if penalty just flicks it off Trent's hand or something. Those things happen.
But thinking about it, I think the biggest advantage Liverpool has, like compared to all the other teams they're facing, is their stadium in EPL it's like 100% fans, right? In Italy it's still at 30%. In La Liga I think still like 30-40%.
You guys are gonna have all the fans,
like the home game is gonna be amazing compared to Milan's. We will only have, instead of 80k we're gonna have 30k, so that's like a massive advantage for them, honestly. What do you guys think, right?
So Anfield atmosphere is great. That's what Spence says.
And then it's like the whole 100% capacity is like, wow, we only like 30%, that's like massive.
Serie A is just a bit weird. I don't know why they keep it 30k, but Liverpool have that advantage over us in that terms of capacity.
Yeah, I think that'll be a bigger conversation to be had throughout the season with COVID, and I'm not sure what the regulations are for different governments in terms of different countries and travel and stuff, but I'm sure that the away fans being able to travel and whatever that happens with travel in Europe, I'm not too sure what's going on there at the moment, but I think that'll be interesting. If you have certain grounds you can have 100% or near 100% capacity, and you have ones that can't, then it definitely tips the scales in favor to a certain degree, and it's a reality of the times we're living in, but I definitely think that'll have an effect on the football that gets played. I know it did last season when there were no fans in the ground, and obviously 30k is better than nothing, but I do think atmosphere makes a huge difference in Europe, so it'll be interesting to see what impact that has.
For sure. Well, on that note, guys, it's getting late for Spence and myself. We have work in the morning, and thanks
it's almost 5 here.
Yeah, it's almost 5 for Samir. Actually, our podcast has had a history of inviting Liverpool fans on as guests. So we had Luca Gasparotto, a former Canadian national team defender. He's a Liverpool fan too, and the Liverpool fans that we've had on him and Spence have been absolutely fantastic. Thanks for coming on, Spence. You've been a great guest. Thanks for bringing up your points on Liverpool. I hope that provides a bit of a background for the listeners who will be tuning in tomorrow if they want to hear a bit about the Liverpool team, so they can have that information in their back pocket prior. And we know already how good Liverpool are. So thanks for your coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been great getting to chat, and hopefully it's an entertaining match tomorrow. I mean, it'll be nice to see those two European pedigrees going at it again. So up the Reds, and hoping the result goes our way. But regardless, hope everyone enjoys the match.
Sure. Samir, you want to say bye?
Spence, thanks for coming. I had it's a good episode, always. Like I like the episode with guests, you can hear their perspective. Like,
perspective,
it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Hopefully you guys lose,
There it is. Good luck, don't worry, I'll be more unbearable in the chat afterwards.
Oh my god. But all right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and once again, Forza Milan. Spence, can we get a Forza Milan from you? Or
up the Reds.
That's good enough.